Today I'll be showing you the provisional cast on using a second circular needle or spare cable from an interchangeable set. It's the same for either one. If you're using a spare circular needle, I recommend using one at least one size smaller than what you're working the pattern on. And so I like to start with a slip knot and slide it onto my spare cable needle, circular needle, or spare cable, whichever I'm using. And then holding the cable below my working needle, I go behind my working yarn and then in front of the cable to grab around the working yarn and bring it up. Then behind the working yarn to create a third stitch, and then under the cable, over and behind my working yarn to bring up a stitch. Behind my working yarn, under, over, and back up. And behind, over, under, over, and back up. Behind, under, over, and back up. And the benefit to using a spare circular needle or cable is that these stitches that you're holding will not twist and wrap your cable around. They'll stay in line and are therefore easier to start working on when you go back to start working them. I'll work a few rows and then come back and show you how to start working that provisional cast on. As you can see, I have worked several rows and then bound off my stitches, and I still have a needle in there because it's my provisional cast on. And so to start working my provisional cast on, I'm going to turn the piece upside down, and you can decide whether you want to work on start on the far end with a purl row or start on the front side with a knit row. It doesn't really make a difference which side you start on, just so you're consistent with the pattern. I'm going to start with a purl row where my slip knot is, and I am going to get rid of my slip knot because I don't care for them in my pattern, in my finished pieces. And then I'm going to join my working yarn with the provisional cast on. Every other stitch will present backwards on your needles. And so you'll want to pay attention to that and make sure you work the stitch in the proper presentation. Because I'm starting on this end, my first stitch is going to be backwards, so I'll purl. Actually, it's a forward, so I'll purl that first stitch. And then my second stitch is backwards, so I'll purl that stitch through the back loop, and then front loop, back loop, front loop, back loop, and just continue working in that method across all of your stitches. And you'll want to count and make sure that you have the same number of stitches that you started the first side with. And when you are finished, you'll see that it's a fairly seamless transition from one side to the other.